Hey, Alana here from Alana Integrative Health. As promised, it's My Story Mondays, so here I am with a little bit of a story about my health journey. We all have a story, don't we? Well, the most recent thing that's brought me to this point is that I was diagnosed with Candida and H. pylori about 6 years ago. And this was a life-changing diagnosis because, well, first of all, H. pylori has completely changed my life and the state of my health, my body, the way that I live my life and have to eat. So that was a huge shift. But Candida was really interesting because actually I had been sick for most of my life. And having been run around from doctor to doctor to doctor as a kid, I never had any diagnosis. It was proposed that maybe I had this autoimmune disease or this autoimmune disease, but there was never any concrete evidence. And it was just this mysterious illness that had weird symptoms, I was chronically fatigued, I had brain fog, vision problems, very tired, body aches, and then a lot of respiratory infections. Although I never noticed anything in my stomach. But when I was in high school, after I had been sick over and over and over again, and I was missing a lot of school, and none of the Western doctors were able to give me any kind of conclusive results, we went to a functional medicine doctor. He was an MD and a naturopathic doctor. And this man changed my world. Even he was not able to give me a diagnosis of Candida, but he was the first person to consider other things outside of blood tests for results, because blood tests aren't always conclusive, and you have to know what you're testing for. He was the first person to look at me as a whole, considering my lifestyle and my diet. I had never seen a doctor check the condition of my fingernails and my hair before. What does that mean? That actually says a lot about your current state of health. So this was my first eye-opening experience into what else is out there, that food and nutrition and lifestyle play a huge role on your current state of health. So when I got this diagnosis for Candida about 6 years ago, and I started treating it, symptoms that I had had my entire life started to disappear. And I couldn't believe that after all the doctors that I had been to in my entire life, not a single doctor had ever even considered that Candida would be an issue. And this just rocked my world. And in my research, there's just so much confusing information out there. And having lived this my whole life and being my own scientific petri dish, right? We can only we know our bodies better than anyone else, and we can only do trial and error on ourselves, right? So it's a constant experiment about what foods are going to work for us, what won't, what supplements are going to be helpful and what aren't, and the way that we have to live our lifestyle. So thankfully, I have Candida no more, but still H. pylori is just this silent killer, and I want to bring awareness to that. And I want to bring awareness to the fact that sugar plays an enormous role in your gut health and your health condition overall. People who are addicted to sugar aren't necessarily obese people. There are a lot of reasons why people are hooked on sugar and why they feel like they need it, but actually it could be that you have some kind of bacterial or parasitic infection that is driving you towards sugary foods or high carbohydrate foods, because let's face it, all carbohydrates do break down to some form of sugar. And that is why we have to be so mindful about the kinds of foods that we put in our body. For example, potatoes seem harmless, right? But the starch, the level of sugar, the level of starch is very, very high, with no fiber content really to buffer the starch breakdown into sugars. Causes a terrible reaction in me, whereas someone else can live off potatoes, right? But at the same time, pumpkin, squash, and sweet potatoes cause me no effect. And so you have to look at the minute details as to why that is. What is in a sweet potato that digests properly for me, but a white potato can't? So if you're having health issues, digestive issues, and chronic illness or whatever it might be, really start thinking about what you're eating, because it could be that your food is the source of your ailments. So that's just a snippet of what's been going on with me in the last decade. But this story goes a lot longer, all the way back to childhood. So I'm going to leave the rest of my story hanging, giving you a cliffhanger until the next time for My Story Mondays. Stay tuned.